The agenda this week went back to school on the Ford government's curriculum changes. We examined the testy relations between Queen's Park and the province's capital city. Our week in review begins with a look at where the power resides in Ontario's new government. Who's actually making the decisions in this government? And I'll give you a bit of a checklist, and maybe you can help us sort of understand how it works.
Try.
I mean, obviously there is the Premier, but the Premier has an influential chief of staff who has very little political experience, but a lot of Doug Ford experience. He has a principal secretary who has not that much Doug Ford experience, but a lot of political experience. And then, of course, there's the cabinet and the caucus after that. Peel back the curtain. How does it work?
Look, I think he's assembled a strong team of sort of mixed talent. MPPs that have been there for a long time, that know how the place works, and that was a nod to them. You were here. Now you get to take these positions of real decision making. I think within his office, he's got multiple verticals of influence, those with a lot of political experience, those with a lot of Ford experience, and I think that it's working well. Right now, I think we're seeing a lot of the decisions, as you would in any government early on, come from a very sort of centralized place, and as people get briefed up, look, they sat 12 days after forming government. Getting their ducks in a row for a question period, that doesn't give you a lot of time to brief up on your files. But if they're taking the next 3 weeks to brief up on their files, I think you'll see a lot of that decision making decentralized back into ministers' responsibility and with a strong team around them.
How does it look to you?
It looks like an extreme version of most provincial governments. Most provincial governments are run by a handful of people, some ministers, some staff. In the Premier's office. And this is, I think, an extreme version of that. I know that there were Conservatives who didn't like Mr. Ford, who reassured people, listen, the Caroline Mulrooney's and the Christine Elliott's and et cetera will moderate him and control him. Well, they don't have any say in anything that's going on. And he sent Caroline Mulroney out to defend the lawsuit against the federal government, which she was clearly uncomfortable with doing. The education minister apparently refuses to answer questions about the curriculum for some weeks on end now. This is everybody who deals with government is scrambling right now, not to figure out what Christine Elliott thinks or Rod Phillips thinks or Caroline Mulroney thinks. Everybody's trying to figure out, what does Doug Ford think and how do we get to Doug Ford? Because he's clearly driving the government in a very, very personal way. And he isn't a traditional conservative. You can't look at historical conservative positions and say, well, this is where he's likely to go. He's a populist. And if I could answer David Reevely's question, populism doesn't care about climate change because populism is anti-intellectual. And so populism doesn't believe that climate change exists. Populism has an easy answer to social assistance and welfare rates.
His environment minister has pretty clearly said on many occasions, we believe climate change is a real thing, we believe it's caused by people, and we will have a policy on it. Stay tuned.
Right, and I'll bet anybody in this panel any amount of money that whatever they produce, no commentator of any quality thinks it will make any difference to the climate and the planet.
Andrea Horwath has used some fairly tough talk when discussing this current Premier. She says he's behaving like a dictator, like he thinks he's the king of Ontario. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
How come?
Because there's a lot of people that believe that he is behaving that way. When you take a look at what he's doing to the City of Toronto in particular with the council makeup, the number of wards, the number of councillors on that, there is a hypocrisy when Mr. Ford walks out and says that he is going to tear down the curriculum because not enough people were consulted. After 4,000 individuals were consulted on the revised sex ed curriculum, and that he turns around and says we're going to cut the city council in the City of Toronto in half without any consultation whatsoever. That is at the heart of it. I'm a resident of the City of Toronto. And to be quite honest, while I was looking at these upcoming municipal elections with, some fading interest, but, nothing too serious until that. And then you realize that this is going to be a front with an effort against the provincial government that you didn't think we'd have to undertake. Particularly, what is egregious is that the campaign was already on. And that really I think that affects people. It's not just about how many politicians there are. That's the populism that he's describing. This is about how the city is governed, how long it will take to get issues in the city dealt with, and it cuts right to the core of it all.
How concerned are you about the fact that the math scores in our EQAO, I hate acronyms, Education Quality
and Accountability
Office. Thank you, Annie. That's why you get invited back all the time.
I know my acronyms.
You know what the acronyms stand for. How concerned are you that they're going in the wrong direction, those scores?
I'm really concerned. This has been a trending pattern downwards for the last 8 to 9 years. And I'm really concerned because now we have a government that is creating this divisiveness about discovery math versus fluency and operational fluency. Like you have to be on either camp. But in fact, you really want a balanced approach. That is the key to what we want. And you know, we've seen the pendulum swing to, you know, discovery math came about from research, lots of research in the 1990s.
For those who didn't take it or don't have a kid in school right now, what is that?
It's a misnomer, but...
Yeah, because it sounds like kind of airy-fairy.
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly, you're right.
Discovery. I'm going to discover
sounds like
math.
a lofty...
Exactly,
yes,
or it's like 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4.
Exactly.
It still does, though,
discovery
right?
math, actually,
so.
it was based on research from Constance Cami, who discovered that when she was working with students who only memorized algorithms, young children, grades 1, 2, and 3, what happened was the consequences were detrimental. They developed misconceptions about place value, about quantity, and they were only focused on the procedures and the steps, and it compromised their number sense. And what she found was when students were allowed to have an inquiry-based approach where they were permitted to use counters and collaborate and problem solve and make meaning of the numbers, that the post-test results between the two groups amongst all her studies found that the students who did inquiry math significantly did way better than the students who did rote memorization. So she suggested that we hold off on the teaching of memorization and the direct teaching of algorithms with young children because they're not developmentally ready for it yet.
Can I tell you what the Premier had to say about that?
Yeah, I know. He says that to scrap discovery math and bring in proven methods. Well, the empirical research shows...
Let's let him speak for itself. Sheldon,
Okay.
you got that clip standing by? If so, fire away.
Kids used to learn math by doing things like memorizing a multiplication table, and it worked. Kathleen Wynne scrapped that. Instead, our kids are left with experimental discovery math. That hardly teaches math at all. Instead, everyone gets a participation ribbon.
That was Doug Ford on the hustings during the election campaign. Okay, let's go around on this. You want to finish up on that?
Memorization alone is not a proven method. It is ineffective and unsustainable. I do agree we need fluency. Our students need to be procedurally fluent. They need to have procedural knowledge. The NCTM, which is the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics, another acronym for you, Steve, they talk about when they came out with the reform math standards, they talk about a balanced approach that the fluency and the understanding of arithmetic with automatic recall, it is a means to an end. In essence, we want students to be amazing problem solvers because that's what mathematicians do. And without that fluency, sometimes that can get in the way to become problem solvers.
Okay, Annie, your view on how mortified we ought to be that the math scores are going in the wrong direction and how to solve it.
I don't think we need to be mortified, but we definitely need to be concerned. You know, there are scores there. It's data. We should use it. It's really, really important. So we can't just go, yeah, whatever. I think that I will use my poor child, who I always use in this example, who has just gone back to university again, because she loves going to school. But she takes advanced statistics. She is brilliant at that, but she does not know her times tables. That's not evidence. That's just one anecdote.
How can you be an expert at statistics and not know your times tables?
Because conceptual, because she got a deep understanding of all of the concepts. Now, I am not saying I don't think she should know her times tables, but I think that this is another example of creating a kind of polarized debate where A, I shouldn't be having it, Mary should be having it, not me. I do know my times tables, but I'm not an expert on math. And it's bringing into education hot button issues, sex, math are two of them, and then stopping us from having a better conversation that looks at education all across and goes, are we preparing kids for the future in all ways?
A mature democracy of 2.8 million people being told essentially what it has to put on before it goes out to school is problematic for a lot of people. Is there something to the idea of secession in your view?
I don't believe that's the solution for Toronto.
It's not the way to go.
I really don't. Now, and secession as a concept for the City of Toronto precedes Twitter, right? So this has been around for decades, and it has been the default when the frustrations peak. And those frustrations around the list and the litany of things that the city needs to go to the province for permission for. And it just keeps getting longer and longer. You have to stop and wonder, if we're worried about efficiencies and how much government waste may be there, how much time both of those orders of government are spending on the inanity of giving permission to the city to do stuff that it really just ought to have
John
the
Tory
right to do.
compared it to, being in short pants going up to Queen's Park with hat in hand begging for dollars.
Begging for dollars. And that was in the example of the road tolls, which the City of Toronto Act in 2006 gave the city the right to have, but the fine print said, you need to check back with us before you do it. They checked back and the answer became no. But there's a list, Steve, of can we put traffic wardens on our street? Well, I need to ask permission for that. Can I ban door-to-door salespeople who want to sell you a new furnace? I need to ask the permission of the province.
The city
for
has
that.
to ask province
It's
permission.
ridiculous, the list. So secession is often the fallback position of people that are so frustrated with the governance limitations that exist today.
Let me ask if one of them is sitting beside us. In your more frustrated moments, have you ever wanted to say, to hell with it, we want to be our own province?
I have been immensely frustrated over the last 8 years, but no. Is secession realistic? No. Do we walk away from conflict? Is that what we do when we're faced with confrontation like that? No, we stand and face it. And I think at the end of the day, the citizens of Toronto want to see all three levels of government work collaboratively together, but we need to do that with respect, with transparency, with open lines of communication, and for the greater good, and to actually get things done.
I'm going to assume, John, that you are not a secession fan, so I'm not even going to ask you that, right?
I would have been with Lincoln and Grant on that point in 1861 as well.
I get the reference, okay. In which case, because you've been there, you were Chief of Staff to the Minister of Municipal Affairs a couple decades ago, so you've seen this from the front lines. How do we create a better, more mature relationship between the city and the province so that, as Sevon describes it, you don't have to ask Daddy for permission to use the car keys every single night?
So, I think there's at least 70 pieces of provincial legislation that put dictates onto municipalities about what they have to do, right? And when you try and get rid of those, sometimes you wind up having a Walkerton. When, people say, oh, the municipal level's a mature level and, we can manage our own drinking water, and then the next thing you know, you're being denounced for having lowered standards of protection.
But hang on, Walkerton's a town of 5,000 people. We're talking about a city of 5 million.
Yeah, but we have a municipal act that, and you talked about how do we deal with it for cities, and so Toronto is a special case.
Yes.
But you can't deal with Toronto long without starting to talk about Ottawa and Hamilton and other places.
It's still not Walkerton.
It is, but when it comes to health and safety, then you can't start throwing everything overboard. And another piece of it is the whole red tape thing. And while I get it, that you may want to say, well, why can't we have our own bylaw about door-to-door sales? Well, the Ministry of Consumer and Government Affairs, or whatever it's called this month, it does stuff like that, and we don't need to have local bylaws that 444 local bylaws that replicate provincial statutes. But what you can do is if you try and build a responsible relationship between the two levels of government, and if you do things like build on the memorandum of understanding that applies to all the other municipalities, and then the City of Toronto, Province of Ontario joint memorandum of understanding that tries to normalize the relationship, we could have further evolutions in that. And that was a thing that was originally created to say, listen, we won't be downloading on you anymore without having a consultation about it. We're not abandoning the right of the province to ultimately make a decision, but we're going to enshrine the concepts of consultation in it. And I think you can continually really mature that relationship. But you know, you've got to understand though, with a pet peeve of the province is when you get an awful lot of local politicians saying, well, I will oppose something to be popular with my local ward, knowing full well that the province will wind up having to implement it, impose it, and carry the political can for it. And this is where the last segment kind of links back in with your first. The greatest provincial frustration about municipalities is that they're not more like a province. That when the province speaks, it mostly speaks with one voice, whereas a city council speaks with as many voices as there are.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review for this Friday, September 7th, 2018. You can see all of those conversations in their entirety at tvo.org, our website, on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, and on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/theagenda.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.